Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Talking Horses. Sarah Albadwi with Paul Verderosa as live racing does continue the last week of 2023. Are you ready for 2024?
Yes, 100% ready. Going to turn over a new leaf this year for 2024. More winners for sure.
That's the hope, right? Did you have a nice holiday? We hope everyone watching had a nice holiday season. Of course, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day coming up, but wishing that everyone had a nice holiday over the break. How was yours?
Break was good. Spent some time with family and some friends. And how about you?
It was great. Yeah, nice to take a little bit of a break, but nice to get right back into the action. And of course, if you're not already signed up, you can head on over to Naira Bets and get signed up with our $200 deposit match sign-up bonus. Use the promo code MATCH200. Head on over to nairabets.com for that. And while we have no show today, only simulcast available, we do have a show tomorrow. Coverage starts at 3 p.m. We go until 6 tomorrow on FS2, covering racing from here as well as Oaklawn Park for Friday. And an 8-race card today, so sadly, no middle pick 4, but still plenty of wagering opportunities available throughout today's card. And we'll get started with the first race, a maiden claiming event for the 2-year-old fillies. Going a mile, it's a $50,000 tag. And we still did see a couple of scratches in this race, but the horse that is your morning line favorite, Just Music, is one that makes some sense as she does drop in class here on the dirt, switching back from the turf. And we'll take a look at her race over a sloppy sealed surface, going the mile distance where it wasn't off the turf race. It was only a 4-horse field, but she was the longest shot in that race and was pretty game trying to battle on the front end with the 6-5 favorite and eventual winner, Purloin.
Yeah, she certainly improved off her maiden, or her first race, I should say, her debut race. And was it the mile? Was it the slop? It really didn't matter. She ran a decent enough race to figure in this kind of spot. And Trevor knows her well. The horse is dropping today. Trevor's been riding well going into the break, so hopefully he keeps that up going into the remainder of 2023. And she's logical in here. I just don't know if you'd want her as the favorite at a short price.
I kind of wonder, is this a little bit of an early give up as well? I mean, she did run pretty well two-back. I know that there were a lot of circumstances in her favor, but even in her debut race, we've seen a lot of those horses come back and do pretty well for themselves, being graded stakes place or graded stakes winners. So I understand the turf attempt with the pedigree, but I do kind of wonder if they're letting her go a little bit early. On the other hand, she does make a lot of sense in here.
Yeah, and you also have to take into consideration, too, obviously turf season's over here. I don't think they're shipping her down any place to race, so they're going to give her a shot here to run. I mean, the drop is what it is this time of year. It's not exactly like some of these maiden special weight races come up all that hard either, so I do see your point there. And the last race actually did have some winners come out of there, too, albeit on turf down at the fairgrounds in Gulfstream. So, I mean, I guess it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another when it comes to her in here. I just thought that there was maybe 1 or 2 other alternatives you could go to. And
you went to Extra Dirty, a horse who was facing much tougher company on the step up to maiden special weight last time out. Just a spot where she was unlikely to be competitive, and the price that she was reflected that on the tote board. She ended up going off as your favorite two-back when she was in for a tag, ended up finishing 3rd that day, but she does have some experience over a wet racetrack. I worry a little bit that that was for a different barn.
It was a different barn. It was different circumstances, although last time she was overmatched, as you said. And on a day like today, we've coming off a little bit of a break. I'd like to see how this track is going to play, too, with it coming up muddy. I think she's going to be forwardly placed in here, if not on the lead. We'll see what happens. The start 3-back against Antenna, I mean, she did get off a little bit slowly in there. She did make a run in there. I mean, 2 starts back wasn't terrible. It was regression, but the last 2 times were against better. I mean, today, she's not really facing that much.
I agree. She makes a lot of sense, and I do think she will be forward. The horse that's taking quite a bit of the early money, and it is very early, is the one that you ended up picking 4th. Ran okay over at Delaware in both starts, but I always come back to the statistic for Rudy Rodriguez stretching those horses out when he has a situation where he is trying to get one of those 2-year-olds to go from a sprint to route on dirt. It's 1 for 26, and so that always kind of leans me away from these horses that haven't routed before.
Yeah, and this horse is a little bit more turfy on the dam side, too. I mean, over at Delaware last time out, you want to say that this horse ended up being wide in a compact field, fine. I get it. At the end of the day, I was using horses that were scratched underneath, so I kind of ran into this horse for fourth in here. I don't think the mile, though, is going to be that much of a problem for this horse. So the drop in the stretch out, we'll see what happens in here, but the stat really doesn't lie when it comes to this horse.
Right. So at a short price, I'm always hesitant to take these types, but this is a situation where there isn't a ton of form to go on. I went to Union Bell, who is putting the blinkers on for the Atras Barn. She was far back and rallied a little bit towards the inside on debut in the same race that Extra Dirty and By the Glass come out of. And when she was dropped in for the $40,000 tag last time out, she went off at the second choice. She finished fourth behind a horse that was dropping in class in Progeny, who came back to finish second to Antenna. So I liked that she was a little bit more forward. I think that that could help putting the blinkers on today and being inside. I do like seeing a little bit of a progression with her. She will have to get a little bit faster to beat some of the shorter priced horses, but I thought that she was one that might be moving in an okay direction.
Yeah, hopefully she's better, too, for her debut race, where she didn't like the kickback too much today, too. So hopefully she's gotten over that today with a track like we have today.
Yes, definitely will be a factor. Moving on to the second race, this is a really competitive, compact group that we have in an allowance optional claiming going a mile distance. And the morning line really reflects the type of field that we're looking at, where you can make a case for, at least for me, 5 of the 6 contenders. And we'll start with Win It, who is a horse that did win last time out, going second off a layoff. And he was one that always seemed to show some hints of ability and promise earlier on in his career, but was plagued by some of these issues of not being able to get out of the gate all of that quickly and just being kind of a tougher horse to ride. He tends to lug out a little bit. He's one that certainly takes a little bit of getting to know, as Kendrick has done, and he was able to get the job done in here over a muddy sealed surface going the mile distance, and he got a 92 buyer for that effort when even in the race prior to that, when he did finish a pretty good second off the layoff, that was behind Castle Chaos, who came back to run third in the Cigar Mile.
Yeah, this horse has definitely run some good races. And we even go back to the race back on January 6th, where he totally just was slow to get out of the gate. And we were like, this isn't going to work out well. And he rallied there. So, I mean, he's been running well. He's a tough horse to ride, as you mentioned. And on that day, on December 2nd, I mean, he is usually forwardly placed anyway, and that day, we all know how the track played that day. It was playing the speed, so he got the run of the race that day. I just want to see it one more time at this level against this group like this. I had a really tough time with this race, and as you said, I could make a case for pretty much 5 out of 6 horses in here, so it's just a matter of how you thought the race dynamics was going to set up in here. And I think he's probably the fastest of the horses to be on the front end in here, but he may have some company on the outside.
Well, I think that post positions do really kind of dictate what needs to happen for him, because you know that Kendrick is going to be aggressive towards the rail with him. But it seems like Film Star is a horse that's also going to be forward early. And we can take a look at when he finished second in the Woodward at a decent price that day behind Zandon. He was forward that day. This was a really solid effort from him, a horse that had put together back-to-back wins, facing allowance company, and then stepping up pretty successfully to the graded stakes waters, running behind a horse that, while Zandon wasn't a winning type, he was a very consistent horse at the upper levels.
Yeah, and this was a competitive pace, too, that he was a part of here in the Woodward. So it's not like that they were going slow out there. And not for anything. I mean, I thought the 49er was a race that he had a shot to win in, too. So, I mean, he got a little bit tired in the stretch late. I mean, the Clark handicap, they took a shot. It just didn't work out. But this is a drop here, and this is a good spot for this horse who's excelled over a wet track before, who has numbers to back up races and should be forwardly placed in here.
Yeah, he makes a lot of sense and certainly has a lot of class behind him. You went to Kinetic Sky, who is another one that I also like a bit as well. A horse that's kind of shown that he can run some of those higher 90s in the past, and you kind of wonder maybe if he was going to not totally appreciate the 7 for a long distance last time, but there was enough pace in there that he was able to get the job done. He got a 90 buyer for that effort, beating Gunnet and Baby Yoda that we're taking a look at now.
Yeah, he's faced some good horses too recently when you look down the line. Horses like Tonal Impact, New York Traffic, Best Actor, Sheriff Bianco going good. Baby Yoda has actually come back into form a little bit as well. So in a race where I felt like Win It was going to the front and Film Star was going to be up close and there may be somebody else in a hip pocket, I thought this horse was going to be able to find the best trip. And at a little bit of I don't know how they're going to bet this race. I think it's going to be pretty wide open. I could see Kinetic Sky actually ending up being third choice in here.
It's possible. I mean, there's so many directions to go, and I think we'll see a pretty even board. And a horse that will have to run a little bit faster to compete with some of the other contenders we've already discussed, but who maybe has a little bit more upside is Tabaguash for the Brad Cox barn. And we'll take a look at his hard-fought first-place finish in the St. Louis Derby over Slip Mahoney. And he didn't really have that much trouble to me in what was a small field. Maybe he had to wait a little, but I didn't really see it as a major inconvenience for a horse who then got clear sailing all throughout the stretch.
Yeah, that's why you have to watch replays and look at charts. I don't think that it was that much trouble for this horse in there, but he ran well in this race. I mean, you can't take that away from him. Slip Mahoney's a decent horse, and I guess when this horse came back off the layoff in the Discovery, it just wasn't the right trip. The horse got bet in there that day.
Yeah, he
and
did.
it may not have been the right trip, or the 1 1/8 may have just been a little bit too long for a horse that didn't want to be up close on the pace as he was, for the most part anyway. I mean, they weren't really burning it up out there. But going back to the mile today, I think suits this horse. I just want to see a race here that's fast enough to compete with these kind of horses, because this race did not come up light in here. It's not like he's facing, some has-been horses. Win It, Kinetic Sky, Film Star is okay. Unbridled Bomber's had his moments. Even Beachwalker picked it up a little bit last time out with a career best number as well, which wasn't too far off some of the better numbers that the 5 has run.
Right. He just doesn't have a race on the page yet that makes him a winner over some of the better races from many of the other contenders in here. So he's one that I want to see more of that step up as we move along, but certainly a possibility as he is a 3-year-old facing older in here. And then the horse towards the outside that we both have in 4th, Unbridled Bomber, is one that certainly has plenty of races in the high 90s to go back to. He's run respectably well in graded stakes company. He is one of those horses that I truly do believe benefits from Lasix enough that his performance is greatly changed when he does have that available to him. But I kind of wonder his last 2 Beyer speed figures aren't quite at a level we've seen from him in the past, and those numbers don't get the job done.
No, they don't get the job done here. I was a little bit puzzled too last time with the ride. Kind of Javier just took him under a strong hold, took him back to last, and really just didn't kick on there. So I don't know if it was just wasn't handling things well that day, and they just decided to take back a little bit and ease on him a little bit. But we'll see what happens today. And for once, I did not pick a Jimmy Ryerson horse on top. So congratulations, Unbridled Bomber. You will be in the winner's circle at about 120 something this afternoon. So,
predicting it now.
Yeah.
Moving on to the 3rd race, we did see a couple of scratches in here of some horses that would have been short prices, and I had some interest in Curlin Squire when she was going to be the 3rd choice, but now she's going to be your favorite, and she's one that was coming off a little bit of a layoff last time and ran a respectable 3rd behind Fancy Azteca, who was dropping in class, and they did opt to use the waiver for her at the $50,000 level. Now she's back in for 35, and she's just been competitive at this type of level in the past, and even facing a little bit better before. I think that she's a horse that will be forwardly placed. She can be on the lead or sit right off it and rate if she needs to. And with the horses that are coming out of this race, she just kind of looks like the main horse to beat.
Yeah, I kind of ended up scratching into her, I guess somewhat. I wasn't really crazy about the price that she's going to be now, but she's probably going to get the best setup in this race now with what's left in here. I just figured, you know what, when you look at even the May 20th race before she went on the layoff, it was productive enough. Sicilian Grandma came back to win. You had a couple of second place finishers and a couple of 3rd place finishers come out of there as well in the next race. She definitely needed the last race. It was good that she was protected. She comes back here for Linda, a little bit of a drop in here, and I don't know, she's going to be like 8-5.
Right.
Probably now, or 7-5. And I really wanted to pull the trigger on my 2nd pick in here, Fancy Feline, but I like that horse a little bit better when there was a little more speed in here, like It Takes Heart.
Yeah, I liked her a little bit last time, and you know what? She got bet quite a bit and then really did no running in a race where I feel like a lot of the wagering focus was on horses that were much more turf meant, and once we get to the quarter pole in those races, you find out who's a turf horse and who's a dirt horse, and generally these are races that have opportunities within them because the dirt horses don't take as much money as they could, but she did take money, and she didn't really show up that much in a race won by Clover Street, but I had a little bit of interest in her last time, and she is making a drop in class.
Yeah, I think the drop's going to be very helpful for her. If you look back, she's got a couple of races on last year's card, that maiden claiming race, that starter win. They're not fast enough number-wise. On paper, she's probably going to have to get a little bit faster. But if there was enough speed in here, she probably was going to get the right setup on the drop. And there's no reason why she can't run better. It's a needed drop, you know, and sometimes you'll see horses just wake up with that kind of drop against this kind of group. And at least she has some back races against claimers and starter allowance to fall back on.
And you might look at the recent Finger Lakes form, but she ran very well on this circuit in the past as well and had some competitive races against some solid New York breds. So I like where you're going with her. I'm a little jaded after last time, but she is a logical type in this spot. A horse that had a legitimate stumble last time at the start was Divine Cross, coming out of the same race as Curlin Squire, because she really did not get out of the gate all that well in that race. And that was, again, for the $50,000 tag. She had won her start prior for a $25,000 non-winners of 2 lifetimes. So again, just making more of a realistic drop, and she was really against it with how she got out of the gate.
Yeah, and her best races have been when they're totally aggressive with her, so she lost all chance last time out. So you figure if she pops out of there today, she's going to be up front or close to it.
Yeah, absolutely. A horse that I thought was maybe a little bit interesting, and the chances to fill out the trifecta or the superfecta are enhanced for her. Smokin' Hot Kitty only has the one dirt race. It was over a sloppy sealed surface, and she will have to run a little bit faster, but she ended up running second in there at what was a pretty decent price. And I think that her chances of filling out some of those exotics are certainly possible if she can move up a little bit after that effort. It doesn't put her too far away from some of the others that will be shorter prices.
No, not at all. If she can even gain a couple of points, it'll put her right there underneath for sure, especially if some of these horses just don't fire, and you just don't know sometimes at this level what you're going to get.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to race number 4, another competitive compact group where we have the fillies and mares going 1 1/8 miles, and we can take a look at 3 horses that faced each other last time, all of them being defeated by comparative. And Crypto Mama, I feel, was the one that really did more of the dirty work in this race.
Yeah, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, obviously, she cut those fractions, and it's not like they weren't going slow in there. They were going pretty fast in there. So it was a good race. I thought, you know, in the case of Into Happiness, obviously, you know what you're going to get with this horse, obviously. This horse is going to swing wide, and then we'll see what happens. I guess the question is the distance for that horse. But the reality is she's obviously a better horse now than she was when she went the 1 1/8 the last time out. So, yeah, I mean, it depends on how you look at this race and what you want to do when you get beyond our top choice. If you feel like that Just Catherine's the best horse in the race.
I mean, today is the day that she needs to turn it around, because you can make some excuses for her last 2 races for sure, but if we get back to a race where she was victorious at Saratoga, I know that she had a perfect trip in that spot, but I feel as though she's just been facing better horses, and she has enough tactical speed to sort of put herself more in the game than a horse like Into Happiness. And I will say that in the Cotillion, it was a sloppy sealed surface because that was an absolute bog over at Parks that day on Pennsylvania Derby Day. And that was also very soon after the race that she won at Saratoga. So you can kind of forgive that poor effort. It was a grade 1. That was a very speed favoring racetrack, and she just couldn't compete. You wish that you saw a little bit more from her last time in the Comely going the 1 1/8 miles, but again, facing better horses in graded stakes company. And today is the day for her to prove that she is not just some sort of Wilson shoot specialist.
Yeah, she's not just taking advantage of that. Although I kind of disagree a little. I don't think she ran that terribly last time out.
No?
Against a group of horses. I mean, you know, Raging Seas, Julia Shining, they're okay. I mean, you know, we've seen Julia Shining have her moments, and Raging Seas run well for sure. I mean, getting beat 2.5 lengths, I don't think she really disappointed. I felt she was a little bit wide both turns that day, too, in the race. I mean, today is the day. You know, against a group like this, today is the day that she's supposed to be a little bit more forward. She's supposed to be able to sit off of a horse like Crypto Mama in here or Amanda's Folly and be able to make that one run and be able to take over and just kick away turning for home.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely the time for her to prove that she still has those races that we saw earlier this year in the bank. As we move on to the 5th race, where we did see a significant amount of scratches in the $16,000 claiming event going 1 mile, and I was going to take a little bit of a shot with Arabato, who won't be in here. And this is a race where I think that, of course, Memphis is the horse to beat, and we can take a look at his win at Saratoga, but he's just awfully tough to trust. Now making this drop in class, and I feel as though he's also kind of pace dependent, and the speed that it seemed like he was going to get changes with all of these scratches in this race.
Yeah, this horse is a tough horse to trust. And I mean, I guess you're hoping that this horse is going to run back to this race that we're looking at now. I mean, I've yet to see it. Granted, it's been against better. Last time out, though, I mean, I just don't know what happened there. The horse got bet and just never even I mean, never came within double digits of being anywhere. Good pick by you, by the way, with Alba on top that day.
I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, no, you did. Give yourself a little credit. I think that was, you know what, that day you went back to back, like 5-to-1 shots to start off the card that day.
And
So you
nothing
did.
since, but
Yeah, oh, stop. Now you sound like me. She sounds like me singing the blues with all my second.
Was that the day that Dr. Kraft was second at 31-to-1, or was that a different day?
I don't know if it was that day. I know that day too.
Maybe
I think
it
we ran
wasn't
into.
that day.
I think we ran into like that was the day like Centavo should have won. I think too for
Oh,
us at a
yes,
big price we
yep,
both had and got 64-to-1 shot. Took
All
care
the-
of that
all
for
the
us.
days
Prince
blend
of Joy.
together.
Yeah, they blend together when your second and third choices keep on winning. But the drop in class here, I think, is supposed to help. I mean, now moves inside a few posts too. But I mean, I don't know. Is the mile going to make it any better?
I don't think so. I thought his race over sloppy sealed surface 3 starts ago when he finished third looked good because the pace in that race was coming back. And I think Thunderian ran the best race in there, being sort of in the middle of that situation, whereas he was really benefited by how the race was playing out and then hasn't hit the board in both starts since then. So I don't know that this is the kind of race that ultimately will end up setting up for him, but you have to think that he might be the best horse in this race and it just won't matter. I just couldn't pick him on top, and I ended up scratching into the horse that you originally had on top in South Street.
Yeah, I just feel like South Street in here is going to get a decent trip on the inside. I thought at least the last race was a much improved effort. I know it was over a sloppy track and going the mile in an eighth, but I don't think a mile is a problem for this horse either. I mean, you know, Zapruder, I mean, he probably should have won last time out, I think, at the end of the day. But I think in this field against this group, he is going to be forward from an inside post. And, I mean, unless you're going to look at a horse like Proven Hope or Deputy Connect or a little bit of speed from Dad's Good Runner, I mean, this horse doesn't necessarily need the lead, but this horse can go in here. I just wonder now what the price is going to be with some of the scratches in here on this horse from an inside post. I almost actually ended up pulling the trigger on the 13, who we have sitting in
Can he run at all anymore?
Listen, you know, I feel like last time out, two times ago, I mean, I give him a pass on that. He really got knocked around at the start. They just kind of sat in the back and he trailed all the way around. Last time out, he was off the rail. I mean, I don't know how much you wanted to be off the rail because we started getting into those days on the first, second, you know, where the track changed a little bit. It was still a bad race. I mean, I'm not going to make excuses. It was still a bad race. This is a needed drop, though, I think, for this horse in here. And he's got races to go back to. If he can ever get back to those races that he ran, you know, at Ellis or at Oaklawn, he's going to be tough in here. And I think the one-turn mile is probably better suited for this horse.
I've tried to make a case for him in his last 3. After last time, I think I wrote myself a note, do not bet again. But he is dropping
First
in
time
class,
Geldon,
and
too. We'll see if that helps today,
there are a
too.
lot less competitors in here now with some form to at least get back to. So I think he's one that you have to at least consider, even if you aren't in love with him. And I mean, where else is there to go? I mean, I put Dad's Good Runner 4th because I thought he was another one that would be forward, but there just isn't a ton going on with everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I had Proven Hope 4th. Connect the Brox is an interesting horse for me at 30-to-1. You know, it seemed like that this horse was like a project horse last winter for Paul Barrow. Like, you know, it took him a while to get this horse together a little bit. It's third off the layoff. It's a right drop. Paul does this a lot, too, where you see a sprint off of the layoff, then sends them routing. I know last time was not a good race, but this is a drop, too, that this horse can use for 16. And, I mean, I don't know if the horse can win, but I wouldn't be surprised if the horse has an improved effort.
All right, well, that wraps up the 5th race. We'll take a quick break, hear from our sponsors at Saratoga Water, and be right back.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
thank you to our sponsors at Saratoga Water, Sarah and Paul here for the last 3 races on the card today. And we did have a couple of scratches in the 6th race, but we do see the Linda Rice entry stay intact in here with both Kentucky Joker and Dark Vector, which they'll be a short price, and they both have a legitimate chance in this upcoming 6th race. And we'll take a look at Kentucky Joker when he was able to break his maiden in kind of desperate fashion on the 10th of November. He was far back in this race and was able to just get up at the wire.
Yeah, a little further back than I think even Jose wanted this horse to be, but they found themselves back there. I mean, he had pace to close into for sure, and ran well, I mean, to get the job done, taking the length of the stretch to just get there. But, I mean, legitimately, this is the next right step. The horse is running for 40 non-winners of 2. I just, you know, I don't really like picking entries, and I scratched into this entry. I mean, I scratched into the other half of the entry either way, but I don't know. I mean, they look like they're the horses to beat in here now. I mean,
I'd agree.
I don't know how you yeah, I mean, I don't know how you feel about, you know.
I'd say maybe Dark Vector more so, who you already mentioned that you kind of prefer, but
Yeah, I mean, Dark Vector just had no shot last time.
No,
I mean,
absolutely.
on December 2nd, with the way that track was playing and favoring the speed and the way that horse kind of got out of the gate, too.
and I think that honestly he didn't even run that badly considering how wide he was and the kind of company that he was facing. He ended up finishing 5th, but I mean, those were some good horses that
Yeah.
he was running behind.
Yeah, and it ended up making up a little bit of ground, too, which nobody really was doing that day. So, I mean, you know, the 2 starts back was fine. The start before the layoff was okay. The seconds are piling up a little bit, but this is the right drop, so we'll see what happens with this horse. And this horse should be, you know, forwardly placed or up close anyway in this race.
I know his one win was a situation where how could he possibly have lost in a short
Yeah.
field in that off the turf race going the 7 furlongs. But I think that just the races that he's run in his last 3 make him a serious contender. And now he's just in a logical spot, second off the claim for Linda Rice, a horse that she took from George Weaver. So he makes a lot of sense in here. I don't have any big problems with either half of the entry, though I do think Dark Vector has a little bit more behind him on the page to go to. But I went to kind of the wild card horse towards the outside, and Jungfrau, who is going out for the Brad Cox barn and probably just dropping to a logical spot for him, as he's actually never crossed the wire first. This was the race that he was elevated to first place at Gulfstream, where he broke his maiden officially. But I will say that this was a close margin of defeat, and he did have to alter course behind a horse and Expect More, who kind of ended up living up to his name over his last couple of races.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you like this horse today, you're just looking at the big drop down and the expectations they had for this horse and now figure this is the right spot, and from an outside post going 7 furlongs, I don't know. I mean, isn't this horse going to be a little bit pace dependent today in here?
So
It needs to get out of the gate. And
That's a big problem that I have with him. He needs to get out of the gate. I like that he's towards the outside at least for all of his gate troubles, so that at least he doesn't have as much traffic to deal with if he breaks a little bit slow again today. I don't know how much pace is going to end up playing out in here, but I do like the cut back to 7 furlongs for him, a distance that he hasn't tried since his debut. And the turf experiments, I mean, it's not as though those were awful races where he was kind of starting to get back in against company that maybe would be a little bit better suited to him than the Withers or the Florida Derby. So I kind of wonder if he'll end up being a little bit more forward in some sort of a stalking position, but he's not going to be any sort of great price, but I think he will be a little bit of a better price than some others that I'm willing to take a little bit of a chance with him, because Brad Cox does have good numbers dropping in for a claiming tag on dirt over the past 5 years, and I think that he's just one that might be able to sit some sort of trip towards the outside.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not too crazy about him today, but have Adam at a price. I mean, you know,
Well, we'll see
if you
what
just-
price we
yeah,
get.
see what you get. Now, I mean, listen, realistically, I think he's going to be probably 4 or 5 to 1 in here. I mean, I don't think he's going to be 6 or higher, but I mean, 4 or 5 sounds right on a horse like this.
Are you hoping that Ice Road can turn it around finally?
You know what? He's run a few respectable races. He's not a winning sort. We know that. But I've had my moments with horses like this and have, you know, got them in the winner's circle, like Jake Brox comes to mind and a couple of others. So I just think he's going to he's got to get a little bit faster. He's got some races to lean on that are fast enough to do that. Again, I don't like that the seconds have piled up, but see what happens today. He goes first off the claim for Peter Waldron. I mean, the horses run well in better spots. So I at least would like to think that this horse is going to be a couple of lengths out of it. Maybe he gets one of those trips where he's going to run on at the top of the stretch, being maybe 2 lengths out of it and get a run out of it. Whether or not he's good enough to win, we'll see. But he's going to be a price in here. So I figured for me, it was a lot of Linda Rice's entry in the 6 as my other horse.
I think at first glance, that was a race that he absolutely was supposed to win last time when he was such a short price and ended up finishing second. But Disappearance isn't that bad. So I think that looking at that situation and kind of being disappointed and taking that as a negative, it's certainly not a great sign, but I think that the horse that beat him is a decent type that's really in form right now. So maybe you can kind of just say, well, he's not a winning type and that race isn't as bad as it looks on paper.
Yeah, I felt that it wasn't as bad. We'll see what happens today. I mean, like I said, he's the price that I wanted to use in this race with the entry for me. I figured if anybody could get the job done, I will get him in the winner's circle today. I mean, maybe he won't pull a Disappearance act on me and Lou get nailed late, but we'll see what happens.
And then I guess the other horse is Capone, who's going out for the Dutrow Barn, making that drop in class. And he's had a couple of solid races. I mean, 2 back, finishing behind Awesome Native. I kind of just wonder if he ultimately would appreciate getting that extra furlong and also what sort of setup he's going to get.
You know, the race that he ran back in May of last year at Belmont, I actually remember that race against Baltazar. That day, he went out to the front, and they kind of took a hold on him a little bit, and he relaxed, but then he just kind of like got past. He ran on a little bit. I don't know if the 7/8 is ultimately what he wants, but he hasn't gotten back to those races on his card, those second and third races of his career, which I'd like to have seen. He's been okay since he's been with Rick. I mean, the drop should help him in here, but I just got to think that, maybe a horse like Pine Valley, maybe a horse like Quick Hammer. I mean, he's going to be inside speed in here. I guess the question is he going to last the 7 furlongs?
A fair question, but he's certainly interesting and logical making that drop in class. And moving on to the 7th race, we do have a stakes event today. It's the Bay Ridge for the fillies and mares, the New York breds going a mile. And we can take a look at the winner of this race last year in Venti Valentine, who won the Bay Ridge on the 17th of December. And she's a horse that, for the Final Furlong stable, has been a type that at this mile distance, especially here at Aqueduct, she really does seem to thrive. And I feel as though she's one that was kind of against the racetrack last time out in that Go for One Stakes, where she ended up finishing third behind the very solid Dr. B as well as Tizzy in the Sky. And I think that she's one that there is a little bit of randomness to her, but this is what she wants to do.
Yeah, she's had a really decent enough year this year in 2023, and she ran fine, I think, in that Go for One, because she was against the track that day anyway, so she ran well. I would wear that.
I know you would.
I would. So it's just, I mean, there's enough gel in this hair that hat would not affect what's going on with this hair. That's a nice hat, though.
Well, I figured since I picked her today that it was the day to break out my Venti Valentine hat. I know that Maggie got herself a Venti Valentine hat last time that she ran, since she picked her that day. And I've heard that Chris Griffin is also looking for a hat, possibly. So plenty of interest in these hats going forward. Maybe
I'll pick her on top. I'll take a hat.
Okay.
I picked her on top for sure.
Well, maybe if she wins, we can all get some hats.
Listen, I think she is probably the horse to beat in here in some ways, especially if you don't think Fingal's Cave is going to come off the layoff well. But for me in here, I think she ran fine in the Go for One. I think a mile is what she likes to do. I know she's run well going longer, but against this group today, I think she's going to sit a really good trip in here, and I think she's the horse to beat in here.
And if you're going to beat Fingal's Cave, today is the day to do it. A horse that is ultra talented, and we'll take a look at her lone defeat, which was her last race, because she completely ended up totally eliminated at the start of this race. This is not how you win races at Keeneland, especially going a 7 furlong sprint distance. And this was the grade 2 Raven Run. And you can see her there. She's so far back and still making a serious run around the turn. And the ultimate winner of this race was the very talented Wicked Halo. And this was a real effort from her, and she was 4-1 that day, a horse that was going in there undefeated and kind of underestimated, and she ran.
No, she ran for sure, and Joelle did not rush her after the problems they had, and just let her settle, and she came with a good run in here. And Wicked Halo is a good horse, there's no doubt about it. And honestly, when you look at this race, I thought her best race was actually the Fleet Indian, because she actually had to fight for it. She had to go for it, and she had to get that win and earn that win at Saratoga. So for me, I thought that was her best race. She's had a solid 3-year-old year. You can't argue with that. She's had some time off now. I know she had the bone bruising, then she had the foot issue after that, so it kind of delayed more things. But she seems to be back now, and her last work looked well and looked good. So we'll see what happens. If she's ready to fire off the bench, she can run a big race in here and probably is good enough to win coming off of the bench. I just want to see her do it off the break with the little bit of issues that she's had. But make no mistake about it, I mean, she's a really nice filly.
She's a serious talent. I mean, I looked at what the David Donk stats are for off 180 plus days on dirt, returning in a stakes race, and there's no sample size over the past 5 years, meaning that this is just not something that he does. And so I think that really shows what kind of quality filly that he's dealing with and what she's showing everyone in the morning, that she is ready to come back in a spot like this. So if you're going to beat her, it's got to be about the layoff today, because I think that she is absolutely a serious horse to reckon with going forwards, and we hope to see her stay on the racetrack because she's exciting.
Yeah, she's definitely a nice New York bred, and she's run well against open company too. So it'll be interesting to see what her 5-year-old year holds. And it's definitely something where too, I think I had read an article too where Dave said that he, this is as good as she is right now, and as she's going. So even though it's not typical of him to do it, he had found a spot for her. It was just like she needs to run.
Yeah, very excited to see what we get from her coming back off of that break. And we both have Sweetie in third, a horse that has kind of outrun her odds on a couple of occasions, and is one that had plenty of upset victories. I mean, she won her debut at 34-1. She has only gone off at a short price once, and she just kind of keeps showing up. And while this might be a test for class, I feel as though she absolutely deserves to be in a spot like this.
She's, of course, was trending in the right direction, too, which you'd like to see, and she outruns her odds more times than not. And I think the mile suits her just fine. Again, she's going to have to get a little bit faster and hope some of the others don't show up, but I think that she's a viable long shot that you can use. And, I mean, even, of course, on the outside, like Know-It-All Audrey. I mean, I think Know-It-All Audrey probably wants to go a little bit longer. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if this horse were head back next week in the ladies, going a mile and an eighth. And his exchange blows with Venti Valentine during the year. It's done her best run in here at Aqueduct. I mean, this race came up quite a bit tough for a state-bred race to end the year.
I agree. I mean, this is for a Thursday. This is an exciting group, and I think you can make a case for multiple contenders, but those top two certainly do look tough. As we get to the final race on today's card, the 8th race for the 2-year-old fillies, the New York Breds, going a mile, and I'm sticking with the Go Final Furlong late double here with Love Like Crazy as well, a horse that is going out for Linda Rice, who is just making her second start. And we'll take a look at a race where she was kind of wide, and Mia Nipotina was a horse that was one with a little bit of experience, and she was dropping more so and going a little bit further. And I thought they both ended up running well in this spot, but I just thought that a horse like Love Like Crazy could take another step forward, only second time out, and we do see Linda Rice do better with her second time starters.
Yeah, Love Like Crazy probably needed this race, and what I liked about this race too was that this horse did a little bit of running on the backside, and that's what I liked, that this horse actually, made a little bit of a move, shortened a move up, and did pretty well in there. So I like that. Stretches out, stays at the level, which I think is important too in here. Has run well. Mia Nipotina's case did okay on the drop. So damn near won routing 3 times. So I thought that was okay as well. So I know those two are the logical horses in there. I went in a completely different direction.
Well, David Aragona likes this horse as well. And so I think that you might be onto something here with Dactylo Graphos, a horse that is stretching out for the first time. What did you see with this one?
So I know that obviously you've got a Belmont Stakes winner on top, as far as like sire goes. I know that the dam is a little bit more turfy. Some of the siblings have won going long, both on turf and dirt, so I actually appreciated that. When you look back at this horse's first race, I mean, ran into that Peanut or Pickle fellow of ours, and that horse wired the field that day. That was a speed favoring track too that day, so I don't think that horse really had that much of a chance. Last time out, I know the race doesn't look good last time out when you look at it from a context of, well, the horse got beat 15 lengths and kind of lagged around a little bit, but the horse really didn't drop back as badly as you think that the horse would. It gave off the impression, at least to me anyway, that going longer might actually suit this horse and help this horse. He stuck around later than I thought that this horse was going to. So I think with the stretch outs to the mile today, I just want to see a little bit more speed out of this horse. The blinkers come off today. Maybe they'll get the horse to relax a little bit. Maybe the horse will break a little bit better. Going the mile distance, and first time out, this horse wasn't that far off that pace, that Peanut or Pickle sense. So I'm just hoping that this horse gets out and can possibly be up close in a race where it gets kind of murky when you start looking at horses that are going to probably cut this pace and maybe not want to hang around when the real running starts.
Well, you'll definitely get a price, and we've seen quite a bit of chaos in the finales on many of these cards. So I wish you the best of luck with her. You certainly can be a wide open type of situation when you're dealing with these 2-year-olds. And we do have a few that are rematching in Mother Mary, Dame Catherine, and Born for Greatness. And we could take a look at their last race as well, where you had Dame Catherine and Born for Greatness being the horses that were more forwardly placed and what was kind of a contentious pace that day, whereas Mother Mary was benefiting from that setup and able to rally from off the pace. And of course, everyone far, far behind the class-dropping Run for Your Honey, who was just so much the best in this spot. But I felt as though out of that race, the ones that you wanted were perhaps one of the ones that were more forwardly placed.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you just have to ask yourself, how good was this race, I guess, at the end of the day when you take a look at what ended up eventually happening as far as like the winner where everybody else shook out. I mean, I feel like in here you could make a case for quite a bit of horses, especially if you're not crazy about the horse on the rail, which I think neither one of us are when it comes.
We just get back to that stat, stretching
yeah,
out.
stretching out,
2-year-olds.
you know, for Rudy is not good. And, you know, people were going to make an excuse too last time out. The track was more speed favoring as it started to tilt. And I don't know. The horse really didn't do that much running anyway in prior starts. And I know that faced better. You can go back 3 back and say the race that came off the turf was okay. I don't know. For me, it's take this horse as a favorite in here. I know Rudy was going good prior to, you know, the break that we had, but the stats aren't lying about stretching horses out. And I wanted to just get away from some of the shorter prices in here, and that's why I landed on a horse who's probably going to be every bit of that 20-1.
Well, I think that you'll definitely get that for sure, as that wraps up our 8-race card today. And of course, you'll be playing it through Naira Bets. You can head on over to nairabets.com, get that $200 deposit match sign-up bonus with the promo code MATCH200. No show today, simulcasting available, of course, on Naira Bets as well as the Naira YouTube channel, but we will be back in action America's Day at the races tomorrow. Coverage from here and Oaklawn starting at 3 p.m. on FS2 until 6 o'clock tomorrow, so definitely tune in for that. And good luck playing all of today's races.
That's our new cameraman. No, it's my uncle.
Hello.
It's my uncle.
I'd believe whatever you said.
No, seriously. What's up?
Carries
Why?
on
There's no
the
camera. You could have sat in the
tradition of its
cameraman's chair.
forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit Saratoga